What's going on, everybody? Zack Rosenblatt here with Mike Kaye for the latest episode of the No Huddle Show, Sunday edition. We decided there's a Mike just hitting windows right now. Doesn't even know his surroundings. There's a couple things that happen in Eagles world, so we figured we'd do a podcast. We're doing it before practice, actually, so knock on wood. Hopefully nothing crazy happens today. But so the Eagles signed Josh McCown and Brett Toth, Army offensive lineman. He can thank Donald Trump for that. We'll get into that in a bit.
He literally thanked him.
Yeah, we talked to Brett Toth, Josh McCown, and Locker. McCown's the bigger news. We'll talk about him mostly. But before we get into like what he and Doug-Pederson talked about, like when you saw they sign Josh McCown, what was your immediate reaction?
Duh. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think, Howie Roseman's a guy who, if he sees an opportunity to enhance his roster, he's going to take a look. A few people that I've talked to within the league and also within the beat have been confused by the timing. But you spoke with Josh, but my feeling is you had to give Nate the time to prove himself. And obviously with the injury to Nate, with the wrist surgery, and then Cody Kessler with the concussion, when you looked at their options in free agency, it was pretty much Matt Castle or trade for a third string guy on another team. And, McCown's been a part of one winning team his entire career.
He's been on a lot of teams.
Yes, this is his 11th NFL team, his 12th overall, because he played in the UFL for a year.
That's right.
And so the opportunity, here's the thing, if Carson goes down for 2 games and he's able to play and go 1-1, and then Carson comes back and they win a Super Bowl, that's a great way to end his career. This is a team that is considered a legit Super Bowl contender. A lot of people are saying that Josh McCown has the level of talent, or at least the level of perceived talent that Nick Foles does, so he could take them. I mean, I guess my point is, if Carson Wentz goes down week 16
with being able to run the offense, yeah.
Right. They can win some playoff games. That said, I think we need to pump the brakes on oh my God, this is the best signing ever, and he's the best backup at quarterback in the league. You just did an awesome list. I won't spoil it for the readers. You should go check that out on who the best backups in the league are.
A lot of bad ones.
But Josh McCown started 76 games. Guess how many he's won? 23.
Yeah, it's pretty...
it's not like he's coming in...
He was on bad teams.
He was on bad teams. Good guess. But, let's... How did you feel? Because I know you and I talked... we were actually texting when they made the move. And you were...
Well, because they always do it an hour where, you don't...
Right.
We should expect stuff at this point, but...
We were probably texting about Jordan Mailata like we always do, but,
I mean, it was... You joked, duh, but it was yeah, that makes sense. There was just one of those signings that, in the back of your head, you're I feel like they're going to do something like this at some point. And, maybe they weren't... I don't think Cody Kessler getting a concussion prompted it, although Doug did try and highlight the injuries as part of it. Mm-hmm. I just think Josh McCown is the best option to be their number 2 quarterback.
I agree.
One thing, it seems like there's a lot of debate about what this means, about how they feel about Nate Sudfeld. I think there's 2 sides to this. I think they can both have wanted Josh McCown to be their number 2 and still like Nate Sudfeld. But to say that Nate Sudfeld has nothing to do with it, I don't think that's true either. Because if they were 100% confident in Nate Sudfeld as their backup, they just wouldn't have signed Josh McCown. You don't sign a guy for $2 million and he can make up to $5 million in incentives unless maybe they were okay, Nate maybe needs a little more development. That's how I feel about it, at least.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page, maybe from different angles. So Josh McCown's not coming out of retirement to be a backup for a month and then be a number 3 guy. But also, I think when you look at... Things have actually worked out well for the Eagles now because of this move. Now they have that backup that has the experience, can lead an offense, has been around, done everything, whatever. He's actually pretty durable. He fits the Doug-Pederson mold. He's very mobile. He's also 6'4", unlike Cody Kessler, who was 6'1". I think... When you look at this, everything's coming up Eagles despite the obvious glossing of the injuries. Nate Sudfeld's market now is not going to be very pretty in free agency, and they have developed Nate Sudfeld, so maybe they have the opportunity to maybe sign him to a 3-year deal in the offseason. He's going to be a free agent, and you can make him that long-term backup. I think he's incomplete, you know what I mean? And having another Nick Foles to kind of guide him in his direction is great. I mean, maybe... This way, you buy yourself a year to see him in the preseason again and feel good with him. Because this team does look at things 1 year at a time in certain aspects, and I think that signing McCown's a good 1 year Band-Aid for that backup position.
Yeah, and you brought this up earlier. Like, there's been a question about, and I think it's fair. Like, why didn't they sign him earlier in the process? I wouldn't be this isn't me reporting anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did talk to him earlier in the offseason. Just talking to him in the locker room, I didn't get the sense that he wanted to report to a team at the beginning of the summer. He said he coached his sons. He coached some football. He was doing analyzing on ESPN. He was ruffling some feathers with some of his comments, but he was pretty good at that. And I don't think he said he was letting his agent handle all the football stuff. So clearly, like, I think in the back of his head, he's like, all right, training camp comes around, the team needs a quarterback, I'll come. But I'm not sure he was ready to sign with anybody yet in March.
Yeah, my theory was always that he did not want to take part in the training camp. The Eagles literally just...
It's the Corey Graham, if you will.
the Corey Graham. He hasn't retired yet.
Yeah, that's true. He hasn't announced anything yet. You can get a good post about that.
So... let's talk about what this means for Nate, though, because for one, it allows them to take their time with his rehab and what it is his non-throwing hand. I mean, like,
he'll be back in a few weeks. I mean, right. I'm assuming,
but this way, you can kind of ease him in. I know a lot of people have rejected the idea that he could be put on IR. That said, though, why keep 3 guys active when you've got a clear backup in Josh McCown? Now, here's the thing. You put him on IR, Josh McCown comes into a game in week 9, he gets injured, you can always take Nate Sudfeld off. I think it all depends on what happens with Clayton Thorson. If Clayton Thorson wows in the final 2 games, spoiler alert, probably not going to happen, then you have to make that decision, and I think Cody Kessler's obviously not going to make his team now. But from a Clayton Thorson standpoint, it's like, well, the odds are stacked against him if they really feel like Nate needs to be on the active roster so they have that extra padding moving forward. Because if Carson Wentz gets injured, you probably want Nate Sudfeld backing up Josh McCown. So I think it's a weird dynamic, especially because they have so many short-term injuries. We've talked about that so much. But realistically, you're going to have probably 4 to 6 guys that are starters or notable role players that can play in week 3 or week 4 that are going to be inactive for week 1. So when you're putting together your 53-man roster, you don't have a lot of spots to keep, superficial extra players.
Yeah, the Clayton Thorson part of it is such an interesting thing because this is a pretty clear, unless he like you said, unless he's really, really good, the next, they're not keeping 4 quarterbacks. And if Nate Sudfeld's injury is only a 2-3 week injury to start the season, they're not going to put him on injured reserve just so they can keep Clayton Thorson inactive for 3 weeks. So they're pretty much taking the L on that draft pick, it kind of feels like. You sign Josh McCown, obviously, that's a smart signing, but this kind of goes back, Jeffrey Lurie was all about how they wanted to draft a quarterback every year, every other year. Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't really count if the guy you drafted you end up cutting. They deserve to get criticized for that pick.
Oh, for sure, there's no question.
In a 5-player draft, they picked a guy they're going to cut.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm not so confident that he'll make it through. Either make it through to the Eagles practice squad or if he even will want to come back to Philly.
Yeah, I think
because he'll have the choice to go elsewhere.
Right, and at that point, you're the 4th guy.
And people just assume they'll be able to claim him, but last year, Luke Falk got claimed and he was drafted that year. So I think that's a good comparison.
Not to cut you off, but Luke Falk's one of the worst prospects I've ever seen at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think that's that kind of ties into the fact that he was a 6th-round pick last year, cut last year by who drafted him? I'm just blanked. Because
Tennessee?
Tennessee. He was cut by the Titans, claimed by the Dolphins.
Right.
So,
and now he's on the Jets.
So Clayton Thorson, for all his faults, he's 6'4", athletic, and has a strong arm. So there's a team you would think, maybe even if Joe Douglas liked him, Anyway, the point being they're basically he's a sacrificial lamb all of a sudden. But, so, to get back to, the whole idea of people maybe getting a little too excited about Josh McCown, I think part of that has to do with, all the excitement that Nick Foles created. I think people need to realize that 99% of the time, the backup quarterback's not going to be Nick Foles. Mm-hmm. That was a very unique situation, and he was a very unique part of his career. But just to illustrate this, I wanted to do a little activity with you real quick, just kind of to illustrate don't overvalue the backup quarterback. So if Carson Wentz starts all 16 games, how many wins do the Eagles get? If you had to pick right now,
11.
if Josh McCown starts all 16 games, how many games would the Eagles win?
5.
If Nate Sudfeld started all 16 games, how many?
5.
There's my point right there. Like these are backups for a reason.
Right.
Like Josh McCown, he's 40 years old. Like he's not that much younger than Doug-Pederson, which Doug joked about. He's 2 years younger than Donovan McNabb. A lot of these guys were in single digits when he started his career. Doug-Pederson was still in the league when he started his career. Like if you're expecting Josh McCown to be Nick Foles, he's not going to be Nick Foles. But the best backup quarterbacks, and I wrote this in my ranking of all the quarterbacks, like, okay, best case scenario, it's a guy who can win you games, but that's probably not going to happen. But what a real good backup quarterback is someone who's not going to lose you any games. And I don't think Josh McCown's perfect in that sense. He'll run the offense. He won't make too many mistakes. And he can still move for a guy his age.
Yeah, so what I'll say is this. So what's impressive about Josh McCown, and the reason why people praise Josh McCown so much, is because they're very quick to forget about Arizona, Detroit, and Oakland, where he was considered basically on the cusp of being cut all the time, not very good. Like he was going to be another floating name in the backup quarterback realm. And then he got to Chicago, Jake Cutler got injured, and then he had a really nice 5-game stretch. But before that, Josh McCown was considered a massive, massive bust and a guy that really was not going anywhere in his career. And I think, there is some Nick Foles-like stuff to that.
Yeah.
Nick had a much better first
10 years younger, though.
Yeah. But I know,
I get your point.
Right. But the point that I'm trying to make to the folks at home is, because you and I have talked about this a lot, but this is what I talked about the other night with Cody Kessler. I didn't think I'm not trying to rehash that argument, but my point was Cody Kessler is probably a middling backup quarterback because most backup quarterbacks are not very good. Yeah. Josh McCown's a good backup quarterback, but if Josh McCown's asked to start a season, he went 5-8 with the Jets, even though he put up really great numbers a couple of years ago. You know what I mean? So, my thought process with him, maybe they win 6 games. The range probably...
They do have talent around him. Like, he's never had that level of talent.
Right. So let's say the range for him is probably 5 to 8.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay?
But whereas with Carson, it's 9 to 12 or 13. Yeah.
Right, and Sudfeld's probably 4 to 6.
A little less, yeah. And then Cody Kessler probably around the same as Sudfeld, honestly, yeah.
Yeah, I think when you look at... Everybody's missing something if you're a backup quarterback. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't make the best... Maybe you can't make all the throws, Cody Kessler. Maybe you lack experience and you're a slow processor, Nate Sudfeld. Maybe you don't do anything spectacular, Josh McCown. You know what I mean? So maybe you have problems with... Maybe you're a high-variance quarterback who has inconsistent accuracy.
You're great or you're terrible, yeah.
Right, Nick Foles. So, you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why guys are backups, like you said, but I think he's in the perfect situation for him because, 1, he's mobile. 2, he's tall, he can see over the O-line. He's got the best O-line in football. He's got rapport with, their best wide receiver, in theory, Alshon Jeffrey. He's got 2 tight ends that he can use very, very well. He's going to be propped up. That's the whole point with Kessler. That's the whole point with Nate Sudfeld is quarterbacks are going to look better because of how Howie Roseman's designed everything around Carson Wentz. And it's a crazy thing when you look back to Carson Wentz's rookie year when he was starting to Bryce Treggs and Paul Turner. But look at how far they've come. If you would have put a backup in Carson's year, let's say Chase Daniel had to go in there. Chase isn't winning games. Chase is not winning games. So, again, I think they're in a good spot. Their alternative, the only good alternative where I would have been like, wow, this is actually a positive move, is maybe trading a 6th-round pick for Jeff Driscoll with the Bengals, who Prescott asked Zack about. Zack Taylor.
And they drafted Ryan Finley or whatever.
Right. Ryan Finley's been actually looking surprisingly good, which is surprising. Hence, surprisingly. That was probably the only guy that would have made sense from a value standpoint, and I get that. But he was also being used as a practice wide receiver and special teams player. So McCown was like the be-all, end-all of getting that, because everybody was like, oh, well, maybe they go into the season with Clayton Thorson as the backup. No. At least Cody Kessler understands an offense. At least he's accurate. It's whatever. But like the drop off in understanding of the NFL game would have been tremendous from Sudfeld to Thorson or Kessler to Thorson. So I think they made the right move.
Like, to give you an idea how bad the backups are in the NFL, I would say there are only maybe 3, maybe 4, more likely 3 quarterbacks that you would even be comfortable as like a starting quarterback in the league. One is Jacoby Brissett, who will be a starter somewhere. Maybe even this year because Andrew Luck has another weird injury thing going on. Another is Ryan Tannehill, and then the third would be Tyrod Taylor, who he's best. His best fit is at a backup probably, but he's also like his numbers. If you look at them, like he doesn't turn the ball over, completes a high percentage of passes, and he's fast. So those are 3 guys, and I mean a lot of teams seem to like Teddy Bridgewater. He hasn't started a game or played a meaningful snap since 2015. So I'm not so sure. So the fact that there's only 3 backup quarterbacks and that Josh McCown is probably a top 5 backup kind of says, like, temper your expectations for a backup. They're not going to be Nick Foles.
Notice something about all 5 of those guys?
What?
Mobility, accuracy.
Yeah, good point.
Mobility, accuracy. If you don't turn the ball over and you can and you can create plays with your legs and that's the key to being a backup in this league. Yeah, you might not have all the tools like Tyrod, to me, has a slow processor, too. He's got an incredible arm. He's very accurate. He doesn't throw to make mistakes, which at times, he's not a guy who takes a lot of chances, which is understandable.
Which is what you want in your backup, though.
Right. There are some people that favor a guy who's a daredevil thrower because what are you going to do?
That's what like Blake Bortles will be at the Rams.
Right.
And there's some value to having a backup like him, too.
Right. And I would put Blake in the top.
He's top 10.
Top 10 easily. Yeah. Because Blake is
the talent's there, but like I said,
he's not accurate.
Like I said, you want a backup quarterback who's not going to lose you games, and he can lose you games.
Accuracy is the number one thing for a backup quarterback, and those 5 guys, I mean, you can say what you want about Ryan Tannehill. Maybe he's not a guy who's going to win you a lot of games, but he's not going to lose you games. I mean, he's had a lot of interceptions, but he is a relatively accurate quarterback. So, what's the next game you got for me? What else you got?
So it seems like you actually have pretty good knowledge of this, but I wanted to test you on all the teams Josh McCown's played on.
Sure.
Let's see if you can do it in order. Make it harder for you because I think you've already named all the teams throughout the podcast.
All right, go ahead. Let's do it.
All right. So first team was from 2003 to 2005.
Arizona.
Yeah. 2006.
Lions.
Nice. 2007.
Raiders.
Wow. 2008 to 9. I didn't even know he was on this team, honestly. He barely threw the ball.
San Francisco 49. He was on the 49. I know that. Cleveland?
No, it is a C.
Okay.
I honestly, he threw 6 passes on this team, so probably the one you haven't mentioned today.
It's a C City?
Yeah. Carolina Panthers.
Oh, right.
I honestly did not know he was on them. 2008, 2009.
All right. Carolina.
Then 2011 to 2013.
Chicago.
Yeah. Then 2014.
Tampa.
Then 2015-16.
Cleveland.
And then the Jets.
Yep.
Sorry, I mean, you didn't know that, did you?
But he had a stint with the 49ers where he didn't make the team, and he had a stint with the Dolphins.
And he was also in another league, right?
Yeah. Well, he went to the UFL and played for the Hartford.
I want to see what years he was. Let's see.
Colonials?
Hartford Colonials. You got some great Josh McCown knowledge.
But Dolphins...
Dolphins was 2008 before the Panthers.
Right.
So he was cut by the Dolphins. What was the other team you said? Oh, the 49ers. That was 2011 before the Bears. Yeah, he wound up working out pretty well. The Bears was probably, before that one Jet season, it was probably the best stretch of his career.
Right. So, he's been everywhere, man. And, again, I think what's interesting about Josh is... he's blossomed late in his career, which is not something that's really applicable to the quarterback position. Typically, you want a guy that's very, sturdy from the start. But I think he's been able to, in a way, find good situations in bad opportunities, if that makes sense. This is a good opportunity in a great situation for him. This makes sense that he came out of retirement.
I was saying one thing we haven't really said that much of is that he's, Andy Reid was famous for this before. You saw AJ Feely, Corey Detmer, Jeff Garcia, all those backups who he would make look like superstars. That's Doug-Pederson has that trait too. So I think that appeals to a backup. If Nate Sudfeld was the quarterback, Doug would find a way to make it work. It would run the ball a lot probably, but Doug and his coaching staff is really good. Nick Foles, that's why I'm I'm not as confident that the Jaguars. They're really bad last year. Still be better, but he doesn't have the support around him in terms of talent and maybe coaching that he did here. So
not even close.
Yeah. So you know them as well as anyone. Yeah. So I'm a little more skeptical about it working out there, maybe as much as everyone. I mean, all the power to him. Like, it'd be awesome if he becomes a starter that he's always wanted to be. But situation matters, and the Eagles, like I said, Andy Reid was like really good at that, and Doug-Pederson learned from Andy. So
yeah, I think what benefits Nick in Jacksonville is the division he's in. I also think I think that defense also helps. But
Nick needs a good offensive line. He needs a good tight end, and he needs reliable receivers down the field.
And he has none of those things.
Exactly. There's talent. There's like Marquise Lee's back. D.D. Westbrook's talented.
I like Chris Conley more than most.
Yeah, Chris Conley, and he played with him with the Chiefs, so there's a connection there.
I'm a James.
But if Chris Conley is the one that Nick Foles is the most comfortable with, that's not like that exciting.
Yeah, it's rough.
So we'll finish out talking about the other guy we mentioned briefly before. That's Brett Toth. Cool kind of background. He went to Army, and you have to enlist. I forget how long you're supposed to enlist for.
I thought it was 3 years.
Yeah, something like that. So he went there, and then he was at the Combine that year after that, and he was Senior Bowl. Sorry, he's at the Senior Bowl. It sounds like he impressed teams quite a bit with his versatility. He has really good size, 6'6". He needs to put on weight. He did say he was 290. He needs to get, but that's from being in service.
He wants to get to 3.
So he didn't get drafted. He was projected, I think I saw like 6th or 7th round, so a late round pick. And then Donald Trump, did something where if you can seek approval to leave your service early if you're going to be a professional athlete. I mean, you were in the locker room with Brett Toth, like beyond like the football part, which we don't obviously know that much about how good he is as a football player. Obviously good enough for the Eagles to pursue him the way they did. Mm-hmm. But like, what was your big takeaway from talking to him?
So he was in a leadership program in the Army.
Very smart guy, by the way.
Smart guy. He seems very calm, very calculated. This isn't too big for him. He's dealt with things that actually matter in his life. Very mature. Seems like he understands that he's in a spot where he's just getting thrown to the wolves immediately. He said that he actually said the best way to swim is to get thrown in, and I'm not sure that's accurate. But I don't think that's. I mean,
maybe if you're his size, yes, but not like a kid.
Yeah, he could probably stand in several inches of water.
I do like imagining him like flowing around in the shallow end. He's like the 6'7" dude.
Now that would be interesting. But he was in a leadership program in the Army. I think he's a guy that understands his situation. He strikes me as a guy who's going to get a phantom like hangnail or something.
That makes sense.
Because I don't know if you sign him immediately to cut him. I think that's
halfway through preseason to a 3-year deal too.
Yeah, I mean, undrafted guys typically get 3-year deals.
Yeah, I know, but still, prefer it to happen in the middle of camp like this.
And they also made a big deal out of the signing. You would have thought that
you don't just do it to turn around and cut them,
right?
Unless they think they can get him to the practice squad, I guess.
I think what appeals to offensive linemen, even though this offensive line group is stacked, is Stalin can get the best out of you. I think that's like a reputation that he has. And I think Toth sees the opportunity to represent the Army. He did mention that this was an advertising opportunity for the Army, which I thought was pretty
self-awareness.
Yeah, the self-awareness was there, and so why not go to a top 10 market and a military there's a decent military contingent with the Navy Yard right here.
He's not the first one that they've had either. They had Chad Hall, who actually played for the Eagles, and they had Alejandro Villanueva, who I guess they had him as like a defensive lineman or something. With Chip Kelly, they cut him, and he became like a really good player for the Steelers as an offensive lineman. So the Eagles do have like a background in signing guys with that kind of enlisting service and stuff.
Yeah, he's a guy that's not going to ruffle any feathers in the locker room. He's a guy that could be if Jordan Mailata doesn't work out, he's another
project. Yeah,
right. I mean. And honestly, at this point, I think he's a more optimal project than Matt Pryor.
I was thinking so you and I both had the same reaction. It seemed like a lot of people thought this was like signaling they were going to trade Vaitai, which I don't even understand that thought process. Vaitai looked really, really good at guard in preseason, by the way. So maybe that's where he should have been the whole time, is what it seems like. It's still a preseason, but you and I both kind of, because Matt Pryor has had bad preseason, hasn't stood out in training camp. He, in theory, was like the swing tackle guard prospect, and that's what Toth can be. I mean, Pryor obviously he's going into his second year being in an NFL system, but I mean, if I was him, I'd be a little, maybe even not this year with Toth, maybe it's next year where Toth is threatening his job. He's not a lock to make the roster anyway, but Pryor's the one that I think was most impacted by this.
Oh, definitely. There's no question in my mind.
Especially with like Opita and Herbig playing better than him too.
Yeah, look, I said it to you when we started this offseason. I didn't see him last year in training camp, but I don't understand why Matt Pryor gets a scholarship. You know what I mean? Like, I understand Jordan Mailata. Jordan Mailata started playing football a year ago.
And he's already at least as good as Pryor.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, that makes sense to me. But you can only have so many projects on this roster. Yeah. And if Stefan Wisniewski is going to get cut, your only veteran is Big V, really. I mean, Andre Dillard's played out of his mind.
But he's never played a real snap.
Right. Yeah. And I also think, like, when you look at V, he can back up right guard, he can back up right tackle, and he can back up left tackle if, you know...
Worst case scenario.
And then, you know, it was Sam Malu
can slide over to center, yeah. So then you have, you know, a Peta or whatever if they really like him.
Yeah, you know, I mean...
Ideally, you don't want to play an undrafted guy, but Wisniewski's been bad enough that you're like, can we keep him?
I mean, if he makes the team, man, he better have some good snaps.
I mean, it's also possible they claim, like, guys get cut. Yeah. It's possible they claim somebody or bring that Chance Warmack.
It's possible. I mean, he's out there.
He is. Give him a chance, you know?
Give him a chance. I'm sure you can get him out of his DQ contract. You know what I mean?
Oh, boy.
Look.
He made some bank last year because he had that insurance policy thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you invest money, if you're investing your money in, like, franchises...
Oh, so you're saying he invested the money in Dairy Queen.
Yeah, hopefully. He's stacking dairy, bro. He's stacking dairy.
Oh, boy.
Maybe he's got those Dannon points. I don't know.
Oh, boy.
Sorry, funny. I watched like a marathon of Workaholics the other day.
Also, okay, this is unrelated, but the Bears just cut another kicker.
Oh, like Fry?
Yeah, they're still struggling to figure out the wake of the Cody Parkey mess that the Trayvon Hester caused in a way.
So something interesting that we have to look into is the Ravens just signed another kicker who apparently has potential, and so we're going to see him next.
The Ravens signed another kicker?
Yeah, you know how they traded one to the...
yeah.
Because they don't like to have Tucker like kind of...
doing during the offseason, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe this guy's a guy that they trade over to the Bears for like a conditional 2000.
I mean, that's like Howie Roseman level, like GMing. I mean, the Ravens are obviously smart. So.
Yeah, they're smart. You know, like... It is weird, though. Like, just get it right. You know what I mean? Like, just
kicker.
Take a chance.
It's a kicker.
I mean, look, they have one job, and I get it.
You have one job.
If they're not making field goals, but, like, this has become, like, a complex, and it's, like, it's insane. It is insane.
There's like a couple teams who don't have kickers, too. Yeah. But so we can end on that note, but... I forgot to mention the Josh McCown section. I thought this moment was funny when he came over to his locker and we're all standing around him. He took Shelton Gibson's locker, by the way, R.I.P.
I thought he'd get Braxton Miller if I had in the.
Because everybody was confused because you walk in and the quarterbacks are like immediately on the left and his locker wasn't there yet. So,
yeah.
But he got his own locker. It's not like he has to. An 18-year veteran has to share, which I'm sure he wouldn't have been happy about.
Yeah.
But he came and he was about to start talking. He's like, "Can you guys give me a second? I got to brush my teeth." I never had an interview be delayed because a guy had to brush his teeth before. That just cracked me up, and it made me think of Coy Detmer only bringing a toothbrush on road trips.
Yeah,
that was his thing.
It's a good deep cut.
He has much better hair than Coy Detmer, though. I'll give him
He's
that.
got some sensational hair.
It lives up to the hype when you see it in person.
Who are you saying he looked like? Because you were totally
Dolph
right.
Lundgren.
Yeah.
Like the shape of his head. It's like a rectangle, and it's the same exact. Like it's unreal. Look up Dolph Lundgren. It's Josh McCown.
That should be
in the movie about Josh McCown. Dolph Lundgren, although he's like really old now, but he's even older than McCown.
So is Josh McCown. So like, but you know. We shouldn't gloss over this. Obviously, Braxton Miller getting cut for Josh McCown. You know, he had to make that sacrifice.
He's one of those guys the fans like the big name and got attached to him, but he showed nothing the whole time.
There was some talk on Twitter from fans that it was like they're going to have to cut Matt Collins or Braxton Miller. I'm not sure who it'll be, but it's going to be tight competition. And I'm like.
Nope.
Braxton Miller hasn't caught a pass in training camp, and then the next day
the only person that had been targeting was Clayton Thorson.
Yeah, I mean it's rough.
Poor guy.
But what? So let's close out on this. Do you think now that the backup quarterback position is taken care of, in theory, unless he plays in the preseason next week, which then they'll have to
breaks his leg or whatever.
Yeah. Oof. Is there a spot that needs reinforcement to you moving forward? What's of the spots? What are you most concerned about from a depth standpoint?
That's a good question. I think I would go with.
Thank you.
I'll go with linebacker.
Okay. Why?
Mostly because I don't know actually, because Zach Brown's actually played pretty well in games. They're pretty good. Maybe. Oh man, this is tough. Defensive end's like the obvious one, but I'm still not as concerned about defensive end as like other people are because I don't think they're going to play 4 guys every game. So I don't know. I get linebacker. The only reason I say that is just because Bradham's been out. Grugier Hill is out, so it's a lot of guys who either haven't been with this team or haven't been good where they played, like Gary. Zach Brown's a veteran, so you'd think he'd be okay. He doesn't. Maybe he's just not a practice player because we don't see anything from him in practice. And he made a really good goal line stop against the Jaguars. What would your answer be?
Wide receiver, and not from a depth like. It's more of like confusion as to what their plan is. I think.
What do you mean? Because the top 4 is pretty locked in.
Yeah, the top 4 is locked in, but when you look at the slot position, I'm wondering how if Matt Collins is that guy. Well, wide receiver's probably not the right one. Let me.
Yeah, I was going to say because Zach Ertz is kind of the backup slot receiver.
Right. Yeah. Now that I think about it, I'd probably say guard. I mean,
yeah, that's fair because it's a bunch of undrafted guys, and you have Vaitai who's never played the position.
Right, I guess guard,
especially because I mean, if you factor in Wisniewski has been bad, then that's kind of like
if Wisniewski doesn't make the team, who should back
the fact that we're struggling to come up with it is a really good sign.
Yeah,
because quarterback was the one we were all concerned about. At least you and I were. Yeah.
Yeah, I think guard. I think you're spot on with linebacker. I do think if Paul Warlow plays and shows something,
he has to get on the field. That dude, it sucks.
Corey Clement's kind of in the same situation.
Yeah, but he's at least been doing. I guess Paul has done some team drills.
Yeah,
but Paul needs to get on the field in the preseason if he's going to make. He needs to play the next.
Those are the 2 guys that I'm watching during trade practices. By the way, Corey Clement and Paul.
Joint practice with the Ravens starting tomorrow, and it'll be Tuesday also. We'll be bringing. I'll try and get you guys a pod on Tuesday. We're still figuring out the logistics there, but thanks for listening. Tweet us some questions. I'm at Zack Blatt, ZACK. He's at. What's your Twitter? It's like Matt. It's Mike _
It's Matt. It's just at Matt. No, it's at Mike _E _K.
That's why there's a lot of underscores.
It's the worst Twitter name ever. But I can't.
Because there's another Mike K. That's right.
Right, and if I change it, then I lose my check mark.
Check mark. So. Oh, is that you can't change your handle? Is that
how you can change your name, but you can't change
your bio and stuff. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Good to know. All right, so one on that note, tweet us some questions, leave comments, write reviews, give us some love or hate, whatever you desire. And thanks for listening, guys.
Deuces.